It began like any other courtroom case. Lawyers in suits, a tense couple sitting on opposite sides, and the judge calmly flipping through the pages of a file thicker than a phone book. At the center of the dispute was a bitter divorce, custody of 2 children, assets worth millions, and a trail of accusations. But none of it prepared the courtroom for what was about to unfold. Janet, the wife, claimed that her husband, Aaron, had been leading a double life, hiding money, seeing another woman, and even manipulating the children against her. Aaron denied it all with a cold, calculated calm. He sat confidently, his legal team stacked with high-profile attorneys. The courtroom felt like a battlefield, and everyone knew the next move would shift the war. Then came the unexpected twist. Janet's lawyer stood up and calmly stated, "Your Honor, we would like to call our next witness a licensed private investigator." The room stirred. Aaron's confident expression wavered for the first time. A man in a dark gray suit walked in, tall, composed, holding a small leather folder. His name was Marcus Hale, former police detective, now turned PI. Marcus had been shadowing Aaron for months without his knowledge, and what he had uncovered was enough to make the jury lean forward, almost in unison. Before revealing anything, Marcus looked directly at Aaron and said, "You remember that business trip you said you were on 2 weeks ago?" Aaron blinked. "Because I was in the same hotel lobby." And with that, the story began to unravel. This was no ordinary testimony. This was the start of a revelation that would flip the entire case. If you're finding this story gripping already, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We bring real-life courtroom drama like this every single day, and trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next. But just when the courtroom silence grew unbearable, the defense attorney dropped a single name: Alex Mercer, the private investigator. Heads turned. A few gasps escaped. Everyone knew that if Mercer was involved, there was more to this story. He wasn't just any investigator. He was known for solving high-profile, twisted cases with a calm intensity that made people confess without realizing it. As Mercer took the stand, he didn't come with flashy words. He came with a USB drive and a simple briefcase. The judge motioned for the evidence to be submitted. What followed next changed the direction of the case. A series of surveillance clips rolled on the courtroom monitor. We saw the husband, who had sworn complete innocence, meeting a woman in a quiet cafe. Not once, but 5 times. Different days, different cities, the same woman, the same man who claimed he was working late or out of town. The courtroom shifted. Some sat back in disbelief, others leaned forward with wide eyes. Mercer had more: phone logs, hotel check-ins, and a shocking bank transfer to an unknown account, all tied to the mysterious woman. The prosecutor's tone changed. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't about a faithful husband and a paranoid wife. It was about secrets, lies, and betrayal. And then came the real blow. Mercer revealed that the woman in question wasn't just anyone. She was the husband's former business partner, someone he had sworn never to speak to again after a public fallout years ago. Why was he secretly meeting her? Why the hidden payments? Why the deception? The courtroom buzzed with speculation. But Mercer wasn't done. He pulled out one final document, a signed non-disclosure agreement with the woman's name, dated just weeks before the divorce papers were filed. This wasn't just a secret. It was a cover-up. The wife's face turned from hurt to vindicated. The husband shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The judge called for a recess. And just like that, everything changed. What was once seen as a case of emotional misunderstanding was now being recast as calculated betrayal. The truth, it seemed, wasn't hiding in the shadows anymore. It had walked into the courtroom wearing a calm suit and carrying a USB stick. But as jaws dropped and lawyers scrambled, Mercer stood up, adjusted his tie, and said 6 quiet words that echoed through the chamber. "There's more you haven't seen yet." As gasps filled the courtroom, the private investigator calmly continued. He had tracked not just suspicious payments, but also hidden locations. A second apartment was leased under a friend's name, where the defendant, who had claimed financial strain, was living lavishly. Rent receipts, security footage, and bank transfers all linked back to him. The courtroom was silent. The judge leaned forward, eyebrows raised. The opposing lawyer attempted to object, but the evidence was too well documented. The investigator had time-stamped images, geotagged proof, and even a recorded phone call. In that call, the defendant had slipped, bragging about keeping things out of court reach. The tape was legal, approved, and admissible. The plaintiff, who had sat quietly until now, lowered her head and let out a soft breath. She had suspected for months that something was off, but even she didn't know the full extent of it until this very moment. The jury's mood had shifted. You could feel it. What was once a case of he said, she said, had turned into a thrilling mystery, unraveled by facts. Even members of the press who had attended out of routine were now glued to their notepads. The judge called for a short recess. Outside the courtroom, murmurs turned to buzz. People on social media were already dubbing the PI a real-life Sherlock. The case went viral overnight. But as the courtroom doors opened again, a new twist emerged. The private investigator had one final document to submit. It was an offshore account, completely hidden and unreported, containing over $400,000. The trail had been complex, involving wire transfers, cryptocurrency, and layered transactions through shell companies. But it was now exposed. The defendant's attorney asked for a moment to confer with their client. The defendant's face was pale, his hands trembling. Minutes later, a surprising announcement was made, a willingness to settle. But would the plaintiff accept it now, after the lies, the evasion, the emotional toll? She stood up, looked at her lawyer, and said just one word: no. She wanted the court to hear the full truth, not just for her, but for every person who had been dismissed or doubted in their search for justice. And that's exactly what happened. The courtroom was silent. All eyes were on the private investigator as he delivered his final testimony. He revealed timelines, surveillance records, and even GPS logs from the defendant's own car. Each detail perfectly matched the inconsistencies that had puzzled the judge for weeks. The husband, who had denied everything, now sat frozen. The evidence was undeniable. Phone records, secret messages, and photos all painted a picture of betrayal and deception that couldn't be ignored. Gasps could be heard in the courtroom as the truth unfolded like a gripping crime drama. Then came the turning point, a video clip. The PI had retrieved it from a hidden dashcam installed in a rental vehicle the husband had used. The video showed him meeting with someone in the very location he had previously denied ever visiting. There was no more room to twist the story. The truth had finally caught up with him. The judge called for a recess, but the damage was already done. When the court resumed, the judgment was swift. The wife, who had spent months being doubted, humiliated, and emotionally drained, was vindicated. She wasn't just believed now, she was respected. This wasn't just a victory in court, it was a powerful reminder that the truth, no matter how long it takes, has a way of finding its voice. Sometimes that voice comes in the form of someone determined enough to dig deep, someone like a private investigator who refused to give up. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. The case had become bigger than just one couple's struggle. It was a moment that inspired others, especially those who felt voiceless in the face of injustice. The private investigator walked away quietly, but his actions had left a permanent mark. And for those watching this story unfold, remember this: truth doesn't hide forever. It may take time, it may take strength, but it will come out. If this story moved you or made you think twice about what goes on behind closed doors, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. We bring you real stories with real stakes every single day, because the courtroom isn't just about laws, it's where lives change forever. Thanks for watching. Until next time.